Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call our public council meeting to order. I'd just like to say that our mayor sends his regrets this evening. He can't make it, so I'll be sitting in for him. And I'd like to have a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, yes, that's right. See who's got, yeah, round table.
Pass.
Pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Dinner. And Councillor Goss. Okay. All right then. Thank you. And now I'll call for a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now I'll have the motion for the adoption of the public council meetings dated February 6, 2023.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. With that being said, is there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Hearing none. Okay, thank you. Conflict of interest. There is one listing there for tonight. No conflict. Okay, next we get into the proclamations, and the first one we have for Pink Shirt Day, Councillor Goss.
Whereas in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, bullying is a problem affecting too many residents, including children, youth, and adults across our communities. And whereas in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, more than 50% of students reported being bullied at school, and 40% of adults reported being bullied at work. And whereas we all have a part to play in promoting healthy relationships in our schools, workplaces, and communities. And whereas building awareness and understanding of bullying and promoting kindness and compassion in our relationships and communities will work towards end of bullying. And whereas we are working to create opportunities and build capacity to promote components of healthy relationships in our schools, places of employment, and the community through awareness, knowledge, and skills. And skills building. And whereas through strong community collaboration, we encourage everyone to spread kindness and lead the way by reaching out and speaking out and visually show their support by wearing a pink shirt.
Now therefore, I, Deputy Mayor Thorne Goss, do hereby proclaim February 22nd, 2023 as Pink Shirt Day in the town of Torbay.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion? Anybody got any comments to make? Motion, I said that already. Motion carried. And the next one, I skipped over, actually it wasn't on the agenda that I have here, but Councillor Tapper for Heritage Day.
Heritage Day / Week Proclamation 2023. Whereas the third Monday in February is recognized nationally as Heritage Day, and whereas Heritage Day and Heritage Week are a time to reflect on the achievements of past generations and to accept responsibility for protecting our heritage, and whereas our citizens should be encouraged to celebrate Newfoundland and Labrador's uniqueness and to rejoice in our heritage, and whereas in 2023 the residents of Newfoundland and Labrador will celebrate our rich and diverse heritage.
Therefore, I, Deputy Mayor Thorne Goss, on behalf of the town of Torbay, do hereby proclaim Monday, February 20th, 2023 as Heritage Day, and February 20th to the 26th, 2023 as Heritage Week, and call upon all citizens to celebrate the richness of our past and the promise of our future. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Just make a few comments. I think that over this last year or so, we came together and celebrated more heritage and history than we ever did before. With our new History House and Museum, we had a great summer, not only there, but all throughout the town, because Torbay has a vast history of many generations of families that still thrive here in our community. So I think it's important for us to keep that alive, especially with what's going on now with heritage sites disappearing all throughout the province and including our town as well. They are in danger. So I think we got to keep that interest going, and hopefully again with people coming out and celebrating our history, it'll continue right through the next decade and more.
Thank you, Councillor Tapper. Anybody else? And I'd like to echo the same sentiments as Councillor Tapper without repeating them. It's been a great year so far, and looking at our History House and Museum. So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And the next one that we have is the Proclamation for Easter Seals Month 2023. Councillor Manning.
Okay, excuse me. Proclamation Easter Seals Month. Whereas approximately 100,000 people of all ages in our province live with disabilities such as physical, sensory, sorry. I just lost it.
Cognitive.
Thank you. Cognitive, sorry about that, and other disabilities that present barriers to full participation in society. Whereas Easter Seals Newfoundland and Labrador is a charitable organization with a vision for a community where all people with disabilities live full, healthy, and active lives. A mission to engage, inspire, and maximize opportunities for people with disabilities of all ages by providing meaningful programs and services. Whereas Easter Seals Newfoundland's recreation programs help those with disabilities explore what they can do through independence camps, art and music therapy, and adaptive sports, promoting full, active, and healthy, socially engaged lifestyles. Whereas Easter Seals Newfoundland offers career and educational services to assist those with barriers to employment in successfully transitioning from home and school into adulthood and independence, with a focus on preparing for, obtaining, and maintaining gainful employment. Whereas Easter Seals NL I Can Too Disability Awareness Program activities foster disability awareness and sensitivity and provide tools for accessibility and inclusion.
Therefore, I, Deputy Mayor Thorne Goss, with the support of the Torbay Town Council, sign this proclamation and declare the month of March 2023 to be observed throughout the town as Easter Seals Month. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have our, there's no presentations and any Q? No? Okay. And mayor's report, we'll leave that up to the mayor to fill in when he comes back in 2 weeks. And any questions, comments on the business arising report for February 20, 2023? Okay, correspondence. Correspondence from resident. So that's been addressed. That's my understanding. So is there anything else? And I'm gonna have to ask tonight because my iPad is in, so if you see me up here pulling, or my laptop, I got this iPad that I'm trying to get comfortable with as well. But that has gone back, so is there anything, CEO, that needs to be further? The response has been,
Director, is there any decision you require from council on that email, or will you bring it back to next committee?
Just want to present the council.
Okay.
okay, thank you. And the presentation is there from our last meeting on the Little Library proposal.
Deputy Mayor, just further to that presentation, the group was successful in obtaining funding support from the Torbay Lions Club. So they're currently working through that and have identified the sites as mentioned at their presentation. So when they're ready to move forward, they'll follow up with the town and we'll do our promotion and assist where necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next we have the Committee of the Whole. I'd like to have a motion for the Committee of the Whole for January 30th.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The next we have I'd like to have a motion for the adoption of the Committee of the Whole for February 8, 2023.
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. To have a motion for the adoption of the Committee of the Whole for February 13, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is our Planning and Land Use report. Councillor Tapper?
Thank you. We'll just go right into the motion report and minutes. Motion items, number 1, BR 20022-009, 858B Torbay Road, Unit 2. Powder coating business, light industrial use, discretionary use, CMS Commercial Main Street, land use zone. The Town of Torbay is in receipt of an application for a proposed powder coating business to utilize a 167.23 square meters, that's 1,800 portion of a building at 858B Torbay Road. There are 2 existing commercial buildings on the property. The powder coating business is proposing to occupy the center unit in the rear building of the property, Building B. The proposal can be defined as a light industrial use, which is listed as a discretionary use requiring public notification. The town received 1 objection to the proposal. The proposal was referred to the Provincial Department of Environment and Climate Change, was subject to registration and environmental assessment, and released from further review by the Minister on February 1st, 2023. The proposal was also referred to the Torbay Volunteer Fire Department for commentary and recommendations. A detailed background report is attached for reference. To Planning and Development Department recommends conditional approval of the proposal. So the recommendation is the committee reviewed the background report presented. The committee is in support of the proposal and advised that due diligence was met. The committee noted that referrals were undertaken and the Minister of Environment and Climate Change has released the application from further review. The committee recommended that the department forward the area resident who voiced concerns about the proposal a copy of the release document. The committee is recommending conditional approval of the application. Therefore, the following motion. Motion to conditionally approve application BR 2023-009 for a proposed power coating business to occupy 167.23 square meters portion of the building at 858B Torbay Road in accordance with Regulations 33 and 90 of the Torbay Development Regulations 2015 to 2025, subject to 1. The development meeting the conditions of the release document as specified by the Officer of the Minister of Environment and Climate Change dated February 1st, 2023. 2. The development meeting conditions of the CM Land Use Zone table, specifically to conditions 4 and 5, which relate to site plan requirements for commercial sites. 3. That more detailed site drawings are submitted for review and approval by the town. 4. Off-street parking requirements meeting Town of Torbay regulations. 5. Expressing existing natural vegetation be maintained where possible. 6. Service NL approval is obtained for fire, life safety, and accessibility. 7. Conditions of Torbay Volunteer Fire Department are met. 8. Standard conditions for commercial construction and occupancy in the town of Torbay. So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion?
Just a question. The letter here is, in opposition, is the residents' concerns around emissions from the business. And I know that we've had the environmental review. It is, and I know we've got a healthy length of, requirements for the business and the approval. Is there anything that we can do to help alleviate the fear of the residents about the emissions? Like they're saying here, if there is etching, then there will be emissions. I guess what I'm asking for is, do we have any information that we can provide the resident to help alleviate those concerns based on the environmental review or anything else that we've received back from that? Does committee have anything to comment on as far as that's concerned?
Well, I think the environmental review, the resident asked for proof more or less as to, obviously we can't guarantee it, but we did send it through to Government Environmental Review, and they, came back and said there was no fear of emissions or whatever going to the neighborhood. It is it's not a high density neighborhood. You're familiar with it, I'm sure,
Yeah.
around the post office. But I think with that, and we're going to forward that document to the resident, just for his or her, information. So
Okay.
I think that's the most we can do, at this point. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right.
Okay, there's one more motion, Deputy Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. So motion number 2 is the 2023 permit listing. Attach your permit listings for weeks ending February 16, 2023. Therefore, the following motion is tabled to accept permit listings for weeks ending February 16, 2023 as tabled. So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Question. When I read the package, one of the questions that I had was about the approval and principles for Darrell Pye Drive. The applicant came to the public council meeting last time round and asked for an extension. I have read the development regulations. I've spoken with the director as well. I don't understand how this is done. The understanding that I have of the situation is that the applicant made their application, they went through the process, they had an approval in principle provided, they went through the second year, the timeline ran out on the 16th of February, yet for all of the properties that I can see here that are on Darrell Pye Drive, there has been approval in principle provided, and it says revised for SFD with apartment. Now, I have read through the town's adoptive regulations. I don't see any mention anywhere in this part about that. So I'm trying to understand what's different, what's changed. We've had a number of people who have looked for and asked for extensions. We've been very clear we have to follow our development regulations. They're adopted, it's law. So I'd like to ask for some clarification for the public around this because I'm confused and I don't understand it.
Okay. Julia?
Yeah, so I can provide a bit of an explanation to this. So the approvals in principle, they weren't extended or anything. Basically, they were revised to include basement apartments, and in accordance with the residential land use zone, so residential mixed medium density and residential infill. I'm just going to quote something here from the development regulations. It basically says one subsidiary apartment may be permitted in a single dwelling, and for the purpose of calculating lot area yard requirements, the apartment shall be considered part of the single dwelling. So we didn't change the expiry date. There was no extensions issued. There was no change to the number of water allocations that are being used, and all other permitting conditions remain in effect. So really, these are individual infill lots that are now moving from the kind of approval and principle stage to the next stage, which are the footing permits. So we do this type of adjustment really quite often. So when developers move to the actual detailing of what type of house they want to build, they may add that subsidiary apartment. So there's no change really, and there's no change to the expiry date, and there was no extensions issued. So really, there's still, as was discussed at the last public meeting, there were there were 5 in total, and we've since issued 1 extra footing permit, and there's still 4 that are moving towards footing permit stage, or we have actually issued, sorry, it's hard to do this off the top of your head, but nonetheless, there was no change to the expiry date. So there was whatever permit approval in principle expired on the 16th, So for those, the footing permits are now in process of, have been issued, and the remaining ones, they're still due to, still valid till March. So, yeah, no extensions. It's basically the only adjustment that was made was to add that subsidiary apartment, which doesn't affect the water allocations. Yeah.
I spoke with the director about this morning. She was very kind to explain this to me then. And I still struggle to understand. I really do struggle to understand, and Julie, you know that because I shared that with you this morning, and you know, planning is not my area of expertise, but when I'm reading this, it's saying under approval and principles that are issued, these are revisions to the approval and principle issued February 15th with an expiry date of the 16th. My understanding of the approval and principles, once this is motioned, doesn't that give a year from February 15th out?
No, so that there was basically just a cover letter issued to say that. Sorry about that. Turn my microphone on. The only letter we issued was really saying the approval in principle that was issued is for now a single-family dwelling with subsidiary apartment. All other conditions remain in effect that were issued in 2021, and the expiry dates continue to be, was either February 16th and the other ones were for March, whatever the date was in March that I don't recall right now. But so that was it. Like we didn't issue a new permit or a new approval letter. It was basically just to change the use from a single dwelling, so single dwelling with subsidiary apartment. But all the other conditions, like the water allocations, which really are the piece of contention here, there was no change to that.
But I guess what I'm failing to understand is when I look at our development regulations, there is no mention here anywhere of a single detached dwelling with an apartment or not being referenced. It's just that an approval in principle is given, and the time frame is, and if it doesn't happen to be actioned within that time frame, then it's expired, and then it has to go through the process again.
Correct.
So from my understanding of it, I'm struggling to understand how changing the scope of the building from a single dwelling to a single dwelling with an apartment changes what the building regulations say.
They don't
see
like,
any-
basically, the approval in principle is valid for 1 year, and then you can extend it by 1 more year.
Right.
And it was still within that time frame, right? So the only thing, and then going to that regulation that I quoted in the land use zone tables, is basically that a subsidiary apartment may be permitted and it's considered part of the single dwelling. So there was no, outside of there basically being a basement apartment proposed to be in those homes, there was no change. There was no change to expiry dates, no change, there was no extensions, there was, basically we're just moving forward with the permitting stage, and the applicant wanted to make sure that the use that they can build a basement apartment in that house, right? So that's all that there was. So there was no change to any of the timelines. So the footing permits were issued for those sites where the expiry date was the February 16th, right? So we've received building plans and all the fees and all that. So they were issued, and the other set of units, they expire in March. So we're still in process of reviewing those plans and issuing those permits as they are ready to be issued. So, yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, there are some committee minutes and information items there if you have any
we have
questions.
That was a motion.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, no. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, got that? Motion carried. Yes, carry on.
So
Yeah.
there's some, the minutes for our committee meeting are there, and information items, if there's any questions.
It's a rather big package, so with the information in there. Okay,
That's it.
that's okay, thank you. Next, we have the Administration and Human Resources Committee report.
Okay.
Councilor Manning?
Throat is dry. Okay, the minutes are there for our meeting on Monday, February 13th, with the recruitment section. Communications coordinator, and the heritage coordinator, museum registrar, and community outreach assistants. These three are still ongoing with going through the selection process. And there's, where am I to? Sorry. The municipal enforcement, CAO is continuing to explore options that can be available to the town, and come back with a recommendation and update the committee shortly with that. Summer day camp for 2023. Job postings have been finalized, and there are a number of positions that are going to be advertised this week. And that is, thank you. And that's certainly for the summer day camp, 2023 summer day camp, but the Killy Coast Games, which is being hosted certainly by Torbay, so for the planning process to get some staff on and get that moving forward. Policies and procedures, they're all there, and information is there if you have any questions. The employee health and wellness, that's ongoing. The wellness checks are ongoing, and by the 1st of April, all the staff sessions should be completed. Other agenda items, there's the benefits review, market study quote, Johnson's Insurance Group Insurance Consulting Services. This is still being explored, and committee is in discussions now to see best step forward. And just waiting for some more information and to discuss and review that further. The emergency preparedness plan, updated on that. There was a meeting scheduled for today with the fire chief and members of senior management team to review and amend the plan accordingly to meet the town's needs and to provide members of council with an update once that's available. And the strategic plan is, a further update will be provided to all members of council once this is available, and it is certainly being worked on there right now. So the next meeting is listed there as February 27th. Other than that, if there's any questions or concerns, please.
I think I saw an update go out for the strategic plan, a date that CAO was sent out for
For
committee
next,
of the whole.
Thank
for
you,
next
yeah.
Wednesday evening? Yep.
For committee of the whole,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. There's a couple of things here for me. The first thing is the Heritage Coordinator, Museum Registrar, and the Community Outreach Assistant positions. Before the last meeting that we had, there wasn't anything in the public package on it, and I haven't seen anything about where and how we're substantiating those positions, why they're required, why the additions to the department. When we set up the History House initially, it was set up to be an organization that was separate from the municipality. And the idea at that time was that there would be $100,000 donated, that it was required to run, operate, staff up on its own to do all that work. Since then, it's changed, and that's council's will. But these are two extra positions now that are included in this budget that the public taxpayers are paying for. So if we could get some rationale for the public around why they've been created, what their roles are, what the benefits to the public is, I think that conversation is important. I think that personally as a councillor, I would like to know about it more, but I also think that the residents have a right, if they're paying for it, to know more about it. There's a discussion that I had with Municipal Affairs about the hiring of the Community Outreach Assistant over the summer months. My understanding from Municipal Affairs is that there was required to be a vote of council to allocate, reallocate money for that. When we had the meeting at the last public meeting, there were members of council I spoke to that day who didn't even know that position was hired, like myself. So I'd like, again, for the public's review to understand the conditions leading up to the hiring of that position over the summer, who made the decision, how it came to be, and how was that money reallocated without the directive of council, because according to the information I have from Municipal Affairs, that wasn't a permitted action. So I want to have clarification on that. I think it's important that we're transparent and clear for the public to understand what happened. And the last question I have is around the benefits discussion. Since I've joined council in 2017, I have been asking about the benefits agreements and the pension package and the situation with TRIO. And one reason after another over the last 5 years, that discussion has been something that we've been trying to make happen, but for one reason or another, just has not worked out. So I'm curious to understand why the benefits discussion is in the HR committee purview, when my understanding was that there was a TRIO review discussion supposed to be happening at the Corporate Services Committee, and I don't know exactly what's going on with that, but I would like to ask the committees to please, take it back, have a look at it, but advise the public where we are on that and why. And the reason I keep bringing this up is because we have been members of TRIO since I've been here. I've served on the TRIO board, and it's been my understanding that there are other options for municipalities like Torbay to opt into. And the reason I've been asking this question is because there are other municipalities I'm aware of who have opted out of the TRIO package. And I know some people have told me that even during COVID, when they weren't able to access the benefits or different things, that they could posit. So as much as the employees are paying in, the town is paying in, so there's a cost to the taxpayer, but there's also a cost to the employees who are paying in for this if we could get a cheaper option somewhere else. Now, I'm very excited that this discussion is happening at the committee, and maybe it's brilliant and amazing, and I'm expecting that answer what it's going to be, that we've brought this review over here to have this discussion and then it's going to come back to corporate services, or how that's going to work. So I'm very excited to see it in here, but I would like to ask for maybe a next steps plan of how we're going to action it, because it's easy. I know we've got a limited staff and limited resources, but it's easy sometimes to talk about something and it escapes us because something else comes up. So could I ask for maybe a plan of who's discussing what, how, and a timeline of action that we can expect, that we can share for the public and staff for that matter around next steps on this, please?
When we started this, it was in corporate services, but then I got elected to the board of Trio, so that put me in a conflict. So then it got passed off to administration and finance. I am still on the team looking at it with Don and Mark. We've met with Johnson's, they're like a broker. They go out to like multiple providers and get quotes and bring them back and look at what kind of prices we can get. They charge a fee for their service. However, if we actually find a better price and go with them, they waive their fee. So then it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything for the actual search out for better prices.
I have two things. One, if you're in a conflict, I really love you to death, you know I do, but please don't speak again about it, because I wouldn't want you to be in a position of conflict ever. Second point is, we have a Procurement Act, and we need to make sure that we're following it. And if there are, options that we're looking at, we need to make sure we go for fair, full opportunity, not just to one broker, sole source, and do that stuff. So I would ask that whichever committee is working on it, look at that, make sure that we're in line with the Procurement Act. But all I'm asking for here is an update so that the residents can look at this and have an understanding of who's doing what, when is the next step, what does that look like, and understand what action will be taken when on next steps on this one, because it's been 5 years that we've been having this conversation, and it's a really important conversation, and I just want to try to nail down where to from here and get those action items stabilized so we can follow it, and then figure out what we're going to do from there.
Just Deputy Councillor Appleby, to provide some clarification, if you look at the committee mandates, compensation and benefits is actually under administration and human resources. So awarding of any RFPs or tenders then would move over to corporate services.
Okay.
So your points of clarification will be provided as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with regards to the first lot of questions that you had regarding the History House and those positions, I don't know if you're expecting, but I do know that they were approved in the History House budget this year. And correct in saying that those positions, because there was a lot more that had been requested in there, but they were two that were identified.
At the last council meeting, I spoke to this originally and stated that there's currently an access to information request on my desk regarding same. So once that was completed, that the same information would be added to the council package for public information.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else, other questions
Could
for?
I-
If I,
Oh.
sorry, Councillor Tabor, just one last thing. I don't know what's happening with the ATIP that Don is referencing. That's separate from what I'm asking here for.
But you're asking for the same information, Councillor Appleby, that's actually in the access to information request, and I'm working through that, so it's the same questions. So that's why I committed, once that's complete, then I would add it to the council package as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just to comment on those two positions as well. I spent a lot of time at the History House over the summer because there's so many activities there. I volunteered myself, so did many others. But when the plans were made which included the opening of the History House in early July, I noticed that there were at least one of these positions filled at that time. And I know that the person who was hired, whether it was legitimate or not, if I could use that word, within process, through human resources, that person and the other person who filled the other position put in a lot of volunteer hours. I know they were paid for some, and I didn't even realize it myself at the time that they were paid positions. But I just want to make that point that, this was a busy summer, and we needed some people like those two to make it happen as the way it turned out. So that's just my comment on that. The other one I wanted to mention, just for a point of information, under policies and procedures, the remote meeting policy. I understand that the town of Portugal Cove recently adopted their own policy as well. So I went in on their website actually to try to find it, but I couldn't, unfortunately. I'm not sure it was posted yet. But I would like to ask the CAO if that's available to maybe circulate it to everybody, obviously including the committee as well, just to see what they adopted over in that town, neighboring town.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tapper. Any final comments?
No, that's pretty much covers everything that I had to say at this time, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Next is corporate services report.
Okay, we met on February 20th. Just read report into the record. Payroll, regular payroll for 58 employees for the 2-week period ended February 10th, 2023 totaled $127,391.98. Accounts payable for the 2-week period ended February 10th, 2023, 2023 invoices in the amount of $88,162.88 and 2022 invoices in the amount of $141,866.44 were processed. So we have some invoices for council approval. We have 6 operating invoices totaling $115,153.10 presented for approval. Invoice 6003303, Brent, $5,983.01. Invoice January 2023, CIBC Mellon, $24,629.82. Invoice 201409837, Cody Construction and Excavating Limited, $11,500. Invoice 1512557A, Narrow Marketing LP, $11,621.51. Invoice January 27, 2023, NL Power, $19,715.12. Invoice February 1st to the 15th, 2023, Receiver General, $43,703.64. So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
We have 5 capital invoices totaling $176,164.23 that are presented for approval. Invoice 22163, Grand Concourse, $38,869.14. Invoice 22166, Grand Concourse, $14,184.53. Invoice Torbay 5, Museum Planners Group, $13,560. Invoice 25187, Terra Nova Motors Limited, $63,890.25. Invoice 35583833074, Exlum Canada LP, $45,660.31. So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Can I ask about the installation there for the Museum Planners Group? Is that cost shared in any way, that $13,560?
That is part of the contract, was a tender actually awarded last year to Museum Planners Group for the exhibits. The overall exhibit installation and equipment for History House, we got $155,000 from ACOA, but we've already expended enough that we've got all that money back.
So, what I'm wondering is the 13,560 that we're going to approve now, is that straight town of Torbay money? Or
Yes.
is that
Yes, it
straight
is.
town of Torbay money?
Yep.
Okay. Why are we paying someone outside $13,000 to do that if we have our own staff?
That's the actual building of the exhibits and cabinets and things like that. It was a tender we put off last year. The total amount of the tender was around $105,000 plus HST.
Okay.
That's part, Director, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's part of the $1 million budget figure for the renovation, restoration, and interpretation, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, which we contributed our own money that we had put aside. We didn't, it wasn't, 50% ACOA and 25% the province. They did fund certain components, but we put a lot of our own funds, plus the $75,000 from a private donor into that as well, too.
If you look at the corporate services package, number 17 is a complete reconciliation of all the costs for restoration of history house exhibits, sources of funds, and budgets.
Right, but I'm just curious, like, guaranteed someone's gonna call me and say, how come you're paying $13,000 for this? And there are residents in the community who are very concerned about the History House. And I fought for the History House, pushed to have it there. I'm all about the History House in Torbay, and I can't wait to show it off when a friend of mine comes down from Calgary this summer to showcase it. I just did an interview that was released nationally about this last week and talked about the History House. So it's not a question of, should we be doing this? The question that I'm asking is, from a public taxpayer's perspective, how are we getting the best bang for our buck as we're doing this? And the reason I asked the question is I expected it to be, yes, Councillor Appleby, this is a cost-shared initiative based on the work that we've already done. So I guess I'm trying to understand, if we've got a department and if we have staff and if they're in place, do we still need to be contracting this out? What does that look like? What's our plan for the best cost savings going forward on where to from here? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's something I'd like to ask the committee responsible to go back and have a look at, and then maybe put something back to the public so the public can get a better understanding of where we're getting the return on investment on what we're doing. I'm not against this at all. I just think that it's maybe easier to talk to people in the public about what we're doing and how we're spending the money if we can also show the return on that investment and what that looks like. And if we can frame that out a bit, or I know Noah's doing a great job of also applying for other resources to, do a cost benefit around that. So maybe if we could just ask for some more information around what that strategy looks like and that plan looks like for the public, it might be helpful in getting people to understand how we're managing it and how it is a very positive new piece of, the town's offerings. Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking for is just more information about how we're spending our money to get the return of investment on the $13,000.
Okay, moving along on this, just like to, I got one question before we call a question, and the Whiteaway Pond accessible trail, is that from last year's funds? Because we had money given from that, so that's not coming out of this year's funds, right?
No, that's a 2022 expenditure.
Okay, from money that we were, and the same thing with the the Rattling Brook bypass trail, that's from work that was done last year?
2022 as well, yes.
Okay, all right. So, we have all that noted, so all in favor?
All right.
I said that already, didn't I? Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Sorry, that was a long discussion, so got that we were even into a motion. Carry on, Councillor
Okay,
Tapper.
we have one more item. The following two invoices, invoice 4884 and 4895, from Pilot Communications totaling $23,000 are due for approval. The committee recommends deferring the approval of these two invoices until the discussion of pilot's role and the results of their efforts can be held with all of council through committee of the whole.
So that's not a motion, that's just for information
It's
purposes, right?
directive, yeah.
Okay, because I thought that we already had the committee of the whole meeting on that, so I guess there's another plan to come forward that will be discussed at
Yeah.
a later time, I'm assuming.
Well, there's some questions that need to be answered, from both sides, as far as the committee goes. We had discussion, yes, at the committee of whole last week, but there are other items that came along. And what we are recommending, I talked to CAO and the mayor, that representatives from our side anyway, at least approach pilot, get a meeting with them. It didn't happen for years now, and it needs to happen and get this clarified, because we owe them money, they're saying, but they have yet to collect a lot of outstanding sponsored money that we desperately need to find out really what's going on.
So it seems that the committee has a recommendation on a go-forward basis?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is
Can I
there,
ask a question on that? Is there public information that we can share on what has happened with the pilot project, like in the package around what is collected, what's outstanding? It says here what we've paid, but I'm wondering if it's possible for the public to understand, how much, we were saying here, the payments of $395,899.76 have been paid out on it. But I think it's important for the public to get an understanding of what's been successful, what's been collected, what's left to be collected. If we're gonna take a decision on if we're gonna pay the outstanding $23,000 invoice, I think that would be valuable information to include in the package as well when we bring it forward, if that's possible.
okay, I'm going to leave this back to the committee to
Yeah.
come forward and see, and if you're planning on
yeah.
meeting,
Yeah, we're going to pursue it as much.
pursue it and
Yeah.
get back something. So it seems like you're on it. Is there anything else in your package that you want to bring forward?
No, just the regular minutes and background reports, if there's any questions.
Lots of information there, too.
There's some more motions there. There's a donation, a purchase of a
Oh,
loader.
I'm sorry, gotta go back. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, there's three motions. Motion one, vehicle mileage reimbursement rate. The town's vehicle mileage reimbursement rate has not been reviewed for some time. Given a significant increase in fuel prices, it was determined that the rate should be reviewed. The province reviews their vehicle mileage reimbursement rate on a quarterly basis. To ensure that the town's rate was reviewed regularly, the committee discussed adopting the province's vehicle mileage reimbursement rates. The province has two rates of reimbursement, a basic rate and a designated positions rate. The committee recommends that the town adopt the province's vehicle reimbursement rate with the following designations. The basic rate will be paid to employees to use their private vehicle on employer business. The designated positions rate will be paid to employees required to use their private vehicle on an employer business. Required shall be defined as when there is no town vehicle available for use, either individually or shared, when multiple persons attend the same event. So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion?
I'm confused. I don't understand why we're looking at two separate rates, and the basic rate will be paid to employees who use their private vehicles on the employer business, but the designated position rate will be paid to employees required to use their private vehicle on employer business. I don't understand the difference of what's here in the motion?
The
Can someone
difference,
explain that to
the
me?
difference in the rates is if we have a vehicle here, and say I'm going somewhere, and I choose to use my vehicle and not the town vehicle, then I get a lower rate because I'm choosing to use it. If I have to go away on business and there's no other way for me to get there, and I have to go on town business, you get the higher rate. That's the same way the province does it.
Okay.
I think the lower rate is to avoid people using their vehicle to get the higher rate when there is a vehicle for the municipality available.
Okay, I don't see anywhere in here where it's clear to me in the motion. The explanation is clear, but the clarity in the motion as it reads for me is not there. And there should be a policy if we have a town vehicle and it's available, you're not taking your own personal vehicle and being paid a basic rate for using your own vehicle wear and tear. If the motion is going to be brought forward, it should be that you use the town vehicle first. If there isn't a town vehicle available, then we're looking at the basic rate. From my perspective, I mean, you know, I got a phone call this week about, or this week or last week, about a tax discussion that was happening in the community and people going mad, and we had a piece in the package tonight about residents' concerns about this. You know, the province has a different tax base than what we do. We've got 8,000 people. I don't think this, as it's presented, is something I can support. If committee wants to take it back and look at it again, but I can't support this motion as presented.
Any other discussion? Comments?
Deputy Mayor, can I please ask not to be cut off? Thank you.
I'm just ready to move on to, if there's anything else. I think you've made your position clear on it.
Can I respectfully ask to not be cut
Can
off
I
again this
just
evening?
respectfully say that enough time has transpired on this, and I'm asking if anybody else has any comments. The motion is put there unless you want a friendly amendment or what have you on it, but the motion as it is right now, so you want to do as it is?
I'm ready to vote on the motion.
Okay. All right. You have a mover and a seconder?
I so moved, yeah.
Okay. All in
Counselor
favor?
Goss.
Aye. All right, on to the
Contraminded.
next one.
Excuse me, I'd like to vote. Contraminded,
I
please.
figured, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, motion 2, 2023 backhoe purchase. The Director of Public Works solicited pricing for the purchase of a new 2023 loader through the Canoe Procurement Group.
Actually, sorry, I can't vote on this one. My apologies. I should have declared that at the beginning. I'm on the M&L board, and Canoe is a subcontractor of M&L, so I'm going to have to excuse myself from this vote.
Did we have something on that before where the mayor had said that?
But they were both, M&L was getting a legal opinion, so for the time being,
Okay.
that the mayor and Councillor Appleby would be in a conflict, it was best for them to step out. We haven't received anything from M&L yet, so I would recommend same. Under the new Code of Conduct legislation, Councillor Appleby is your choice if you'd like to sit in the gallery or if you'd like to go in the back room as past
So we don't need to
practice.
have a motion on it?
No,
It's
no.
just understanding. Okay, all right, thank
Yeah,
you.
So, yeah, just for the record, we have been advised by legal at M&L that if it is a subcontractor of M&L, and we're a member of the board, it's not under the Municipalities Act, but it's under the Incorporations Act, that there would be a conflict, and that's the reason I'm walking away.
So would that be the same then? I'm just asking the question for clarification on the other consulting firm. So it would be the same for both? If
What do you
there's a
mean?
consulting, there's a
The
different one?
M&L has different service
Okay,
providers.
all right.
So it would be those, and I'll follow up with the CEO on that, because it wasn't provided to us, but I'll
Okay.
follow up with Rob just to have a copy for file.
Yeah.
Should I ask for a decision of council then, to be sure?
Well, that's why I just asked and you
That's
said no,
your
so-
prerogative. You can
Yeah.
ask council to rule, or you can make the decision yourself
All right,
and,
well then, to be safe, I'll ask council to rule, but I do feel that I'm in a conflict of interest on this.
Based on
And
what
I
you
would
know.
ask for a motion to substantiate that, so I can step away,
Okay.
please.
We have a motion, please.
I'll move that Councillor Appleby is in conflict.
Seconder?
And I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
All right,
Motion carried. But
Thank
you don't
you.
have, I think that would came up, and then you don't have to leave the room. I don't think.
that's
when
okay,
that
I'll
comes up.
leave just to
All
have
right.
it done. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, 4 prices were obtained from loader suppliers. The quotes received were JCB 437 ZX with Craig attachments, warranty 7 years, 4,000 hours, delivery time 11 to 12 months, for a price of $459,995. Cat 938M with Craig attachments, warranty 6 years, 4,000 hours, delivery time 1 to 2 months, $526,536. John Deere and Brent attachments, warranty 7 years, 4,000 hours, delivery time 6 to 8 months, $541,104. John Deere 624P with Craig attachments, warranty 7 years, 4,000 hours, delivery time 6 to 8 months, price $574,000. The committee considered the warranty period and the delivery time in addition to the quoted price during their deliberations. The longer warranty period, 7 years versus 6 years with the same number of hours, is attached to the lowest quote. The lowest quote has an 11 to 12 month delivery time versus a 1 to 2 month delivery time for the second lowest. Due to the delivery time differential, the committee considered the quoted price differential versus the repairs on a retiring unit that may be incurred over that period. However, the price differential for the second lowest price is $664,542 plus HST more expensive. The town would not likely spend that amount on repairs for a piece of equipment to be retired in 10 months. Having reviewed the bids, delivery time, and the warranty period provided, the committee recommends the purchase of the JCB 437 ZX with Craig attachments in the amount of $459,995 plus HST. So moved.
Before I second that, just want to make sure that it was 66,542, not 660.
Oh, that's
Just
what I said, okay.
Just wanted it for the record so people.
Glad you caught that.
Yeah.
Thanks, thanks for it.
So yes, I second that.
Discussion?
We had talked about this, at length because of the length of delivery time. And when we asked the director to basically do the math of what we thought would be in the best interests of the town, we decided to go with the longer delivery time. And so we did take in all accounts of pros versus cons, especially on the money side, to come to this decision.
Okay. And that was a budgeted item, so.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, one more, the Splash Volleyball
Okay,
sponsorship.
need to get Trina back.
Okay. Okay, last motion, the Splash Volleyball sponsorship. The Splash Volleyball Girls U15 team will be traveling to Regina, Saskatchewan from May 19th to the 21st, 2023 to participate in the Youth Nationals. The team includes 2 players and a coach from Torbay. The town has received a request for financial assistance to assist with the cost of travel to the national championships. In accordance with the town's donation policy, the Corporate Services Committee recommends a donation of $200 to the Splash Volleyball Girls U15 team to assist with their travel costs. So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, so as I mentioned, there are other usual minutes and background reports if there's any questions.
I just got a question there on the deer, because there was a $500, I think. Anyway, there was a recommendation for a donation, and it was to go back and look at it, but with the amount they were asking for. But are we going to give any kind of a donation?
Committee had brought forward a recommendation of $200.
$200.
Then there was a discussion around the council table that that wasn't enough. They were asking for almost $3,000, which would have almost cleaned out the budget in that account. So for the next committee of the whole, we're recommending that, because that much of the budget is going to get spent, for have council to decide around the table if they want to wipe out this early in the year almost a full budget account on one donation.
Okay, thank you. So that's it, Councilor Tapper?
Yep.
for- Okay, next we have the Economic Development, Tourism, Councilor Appleby.
Thank you. Can I just ask for a point of clarification? Will that be on the next committee of the whole agenda, the DARE piece?
I don't, is that?
You can add it, yes. Yep.
Okay,
I have a note made.
thank you. All right, Economic Development, Tourism. Let me find my place. So, we had a birthday, and we had to readjust our timing for our meeting. So birthday greetings out to little ones. We had met on Valentine's Day, 9 a.m. in the morning, and I want to put a shout out to Councillor Manning and our Economic Development Tourism Officer, because we had a full-on storm happening that morning. It was Valentine's Day, and there was a lot of Valentine's Day action going on around, and we still got this meeting in, so thank you to you both for that. On the agenda, we have our Torbay Business Awards. So advertising and nomination period is coming up. Anybody who wants to make a nomination for the Torbay Business Awards can do so between March 1st and 31st. If we can get those forms filled out and sent back to our Economic Development Officer, that would be great. Nominators do not have to be residents, and businesses can self-nominate. The Business Awards will be held at Torbay Common on May 11th. Under staff resources, the Economic Development Tourism Officer reached out to MUN, but under the policies that MUN have, municipalities don't qualify for the Small Enterprise Cooperative Placement Assistance Program. So she is checking into the College of the North Atlantic, who offers the same program, and it does allow for municipalities to apply. So we were just talking about how do we best figure out options to get support for the department. We talked about maybe posting a summer term position, looking at the timelines of when it's going to be the busiest and what needs to be done. So further discussion to be held on that. Under the incorporated business process, the EDO advised that she's been in communication with people who are on that list, and she'll continue with those conversations and see where to from there. Regional wayfinding, there was no update. Expression of interest is out. We passed that motion at the last council meeting, so anybody who's interested to send us their thoughts about using the space next door where the bank is, please get in touch with us. The closing date for that is March 31st. We didn't have an update on the Pico Ridge Memorial Project, but as we understand, things are moving forward there from our last update. The Killicoast Agriculture Advisory Committee, they had a full-day strategic planning session on February 10th. They also have a meeting set up with MP Joanne Thomas for an in-person in March. It's really good to see the communities coming together, having a conversation, working around this. As we all know, 98% plus of the food in this province is coming from external sources, and a lot of people are paying attention to where our food sources are coming from, so I'm really glad to see a leadership role happening in this space. Under tourism, we were informed that the Federal Minister of Tourism, Randy Boissonnault, will be attending at the HNL conference in Gander, which Deanne will be attending on behalf of the town of Torbay. Under tourism marketing, we talked about the tourism campaign for Torbay, how it'll be presented and when it'll be launched. We also talked about the Tulip Festival, and one of the things that I asked the Economic Development and Tourism Officer to go back and do was to reach out to our friends in Bay Roberts. Mary Ettman had a fabulous presentation that he provided at MNL, and it's really important to see the provincial scope of what's happening with this. So the EDO said she would follow up with him and get some information from them to share with our public. And the first annual public provincial Tulip Festival kicked off in 2022 in Bay Roberts. We're expecting that our dates will be close to mid-June. Under new business, she updated us on several funding applications, including updates from McCo regarding the potential wave funding signage, and that we were declined for the TD Green Spaces grant. She's participated in the internal review process for updating the engineering guidelines. So our next meeting will be February 23rd, and our meeting adjourned at 9:58 a.m. Any questions?
I have a quick question. So with the Torbay Business Awards, just want to make sure that with the upcoming year, that we make sure that businesses are in good standing to be able to win or even be nominated for this award. I think we had a situation last year where we had a business that actually won an award that I think was not in good standing, but there was something that we were dealing with that business in terms of what they were doing with their property.
Okay, that's the first I've heard of that, but I think, it's really important to make sure that if there's a criteria concern, that we have a look at that. I don't know if we could maybe chat or get an email about what the specific details of that incident were, so that we could bring it back to committee for discussion. Maybe if we could get an email on that and someone could give us the parameters, and committee can have that discussion with the Economic Development Tourism Officer and bring it back here.
I thought, yeah.
I've got a note made, because we're meeting as a team on Wednesday to talk about the funding framework, so I'll speak to Deanne about that. I'm sure she'll know exactly what you're speaking about, Councillor Goss, so she can bring it back to committee.
But I thought that in the past, the only thing is there was outstanding in their taxes was criteria that we could use if they hadn't paid their taxes. It's something that we've talked about in the past, right? But anyway, that'll come up.
Yeah,
All right.
I recall having a discussion about criteria, but it's quite some time back now. But that's a really good point, to revisit the criteria and to have a written criteria so that it's clear to anybody who's gone through the nomination process what that criteria might be. So I think that's very important. If you could bring it back to Deanne, and if she can put it on the agenda for the next meeting for us for discussion, that'd be great. I'd like to be briefed as well, because I don't know what the outstanding issue was as chair of the committee. I'm not sure. But thank you, Councillor Goss, for bringing that up, and we'll certainly follow up on that.
Okay, so if there's no further questions or comments,
Councillor Manning, do you have anything to add?
okay.
Okay, then that ends my report. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Next, we have Recreation, Community Services, Councillor Goss. Huh? Oh, sorry.
Did you want to?
Yeah, that'll be Councillor Tapper, History House, History, Heritage, and Culture.
So to give some background reports there, we met on February 13th, so Deputy Mayor and Manager. Again, everything is up and running. The operations report, there's a great uptake in people going through participation numbers way up the previous year.
thank you. Now, we'll go to Councillor Goss for Recreation Community Services.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We had a committee update this week. So with programs and events, we held various events the last couple of weeks. The addition of 67 hours of weekly programming. We had 265 people in attendance at Family Fun Day and the community breakfast, 102 for the cornhole tournament, and 16 youth had an outing to the Newfoundland Growlers game. With regards to volunteer recognition, staff are planning an event for the volunteers, which will be held Volunteer Week, which is April 16th to the 22nd. The outdoor rink, the weather doesn't want to help us out with that one at all. We opened it February 10th, and then due to weather on the 14th and 15th, it's closed for maintenance until further notice. And of course, we're having a rainstorm tonight, so that's not going to be very good for it as well. And summer hiring, department staff are collaborating with the Director of Human Resources to get summer jobs posted. Operation will require extra staff this year due to Killy Coast Games. Our next meeting will be on February 28th, and if there's no other questions or additions, so ends my report.
Okay, thank you. Just got me thinking about going back there. So there was no meeting this week for infrastructure and public works for, okay, I just wanted to make sure when I looked, I remember seeing anything. Okay, all right. So next we have the liaison committees. Jack Byrne, well, Atlantic Mayors, nothing, intergovernment affairs. So Jack Byrne, regional sports and entertainment.
We haven't
No?
met, no, not.
So do they have the new manager in place, or do you have anything? Because last meeting, there was a discussion.
We talked about that last meeting, or was that committee of the whole or in public?
Was in the public.
It was in
Public?
public, yeah, so
Okay.
we all went through that, and they
So
will
there's
be,
nothing
they will be advertising the, I guess, second in command, so to speak,
Okay.
in the coming.
Thank you. Northeast Avalon Joint Council, we had our meeting last week. I must say it was a really good meeting. And one interesting thing that I'll bring forward, I mentioned to the CAO today, as a follow-up to the meeting, committee of the whole meeting, when we had the RNC in last week, a couple of weeks ago, is that Sergeant Ryan, I don't know if Sergeant Slaney or Sergeant Ryan, I can't remember the name, but anyway, the person, the officer, sergeant that they identified that would be down here in this area taking over the new position, he was at the meeting, and he lived up to everything that we had heard about him. So he will be attending the Northeast Avalon Joint Council meetings on a regular basis. So I'd encourage, and I guess even of our neighboring towns listening, anyone that didn't participate that would like to meet, because we had talked at that meeting about trying to get a meeting back on the table again with the RNC. And so he will be there, and he's looking forward, but coming in to the town and to the common and whatever. So I understand that the CAO is going to follow up with the deputy chief, I think, pertaining to that meeting that we had that night. As well, we had a number of, we had Mabel Tilley and the provincial trainer with Newfoundland and Labrador Search and Rescue Association. So there was a lot of good information that was shared in particular that night. I would also like to mention that Councillor Neary was there from the M&L Board of Directors, and that the Mental Health Task Force, there'll be information going out that there's a webinar coming up on Thursday night that will be coming forward again. So we'll forward that out when I comes back back in my information, in my package from M&L. And they give it to UCAO so that it can go up on the town website to let people know that that will be coming up. And all of the information is in there in the package as well. Councillor Manning, next one for the volunteer fire department.
Before we move on to that, can I ask a question? The Mental Health Network have done amazing work, and they've got great resources there for mental health stuff, and all the work that's been done is up there on the website. I think it might be cool if council's interested to have a conversation about having a link to that, permanent link on the website, so that residents and councillors and anybody who wants to can have access to the resources that are there around mental health. It's also good for staff as well. But there's a full catalog of information around mental health that's been available. There's been really great work done with the mental health working group, and I reached out to Councillor Neary because one of the councillors in another municipality reached out to me and told me how great one of the sessions was, and Councillor Neary then pointed me in the direction of that resource. So, and then I went in myself and had a look, and there's a lot of really good work that's been done. So I don't know if we can consider maybe having a link to that under wellness or mental health or some part of our website, you know, where myself and the mayor sit on that board and you're involved with the working group. I think it would be nice for us as a leading community to share that. So just a thought for consideration.
And that might work well with what Director of HR and Don is doing with touching base with the staff as a touch-in on mental health and what's happening.
Yeah, provide it as a resource.
There's a lot of good, resources that are in there, but somehow along the way, like M&L has done really good with regards to this with Bradley Power and Tina from the board, and the support that we're getting from M&L on this, and Councillor Neary. So anyway, that might be something that we could look at, putting that in there for, because Don sits on that committee as well, the mental health task force.
Yeah, the material is on the M&L website, right?
Yeah.
So it's a link to the M&L website.
We have it all in there, but it's not promoted as that.
Yeah, so if we could just have a connection from our website, might be nice.
All right, thank
Thanks.
you. Okay, Councillor Manning.
Okay, the minutes are there for the Torbay Volunteer Fire Department, their meeting on January 30th. As always, they've got their calls listed there, and they continue with their training and involvement in the community, still doing the job that they've always been doing, a fabulous one. If anyone has any questions or anything, certainly ask, and I can pass it all on. That's it from me.
Thank you. Okay, UMC, it's Mayor Scott's. Next, we have the notice of motion.
Before we do that, I'm sorry, I have to step away for a minute. Is that, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to let you know before the motion comes up, like I didn't want to miss it type thing.
Okay.
I have, all right. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we'll wait for Councillor Manning to come back, or is there? We can proceed? Okay.
Notice of motion, so Councillor Appleby will be for the opportunity to speak to the rationale, and it'll come back at the next public meeting for vote and discussion, or
All
discussion
right,
and
I
vote.
just didn't know if we should wait where she was having to step out for a minute. All right, so next is the notice of motion, Councillor Appleby, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I've brought forward a notice of motion. Myself and the mayor attended the municipal affairs training at the same time when the mandatory training was being provided by the Department of Municipal Affairs. And one of the things that came up in the discussion, it was a full day training that we took, but the conversation was around directives of council. And it was very clear, and there was a lot of discussion during the training about the fact that if a decision is not taken here in the public chamber, it is not a directive of council, it is not a decision of council, and that's where it sits. So we had a conversation at that time. In a previous public meeting, I did ask for a review of decisions that have been taken outside of the public chamber. And there have been, I think, some misunderstandings about how business was to be conducted. So since I've been elected, I've been advised that, and repeatedly, we could have decisions taken at committee of the whole and ratified in the public chamber, which actually was a past practice of this council, which we have learned that is not proper legal practice and had to be fixed. So I do understand from communication with the mayor that some of that has been done. And when I asked in the public chamber for review, it came back that committee of the whole could be reviewed, but committees could not be reviewed. And the concern I have is that there are actions being taken, public tax dollars being spent on things that we don't have a directive of council on. So what I've done is I've sent an email to the CEO, and I did speak with municipal affairs about this and got clear direction on what we need to do. And the clarification that I asked earlier about what council can and can't do came from that same meeting. And I was directed by municipal affairs to ask council to allocate staff resource to have a look at what decisions have been taken at committee level, and then bring them forward to have the discussion, debate, and decision taken in the public chamber. So the email that I have sent, it says, "Hi Don, as per the information learned through training with municipal affairs, I would like to bring forward a notice of motion. I move that staff time be allocated to look into the decisions that have been made at a committee level and behind closed doors since 2017 at the town of Torbay, which have been acted on and are still impacting actions of this council, and that these decisions be brought forward to the public chamber for public debate and decision." So I'm asking for review back to 2017 across all departments, as I recall situations since I've been elected where I have knowledge of or been advised that decisions have been taken at committee level or otherwise which have not been brought forward, debated, or decided on in the public chamber. So I want to ensure that we are following the municipal legislation and conducting the business of town as outlined in the Act. There is no blaming of anything here. It's just rectifying any misconceptions and making sure that any directive that we're taking from now on is a decision that's taken here. So one of the things that came up in the ask of this was that some of the staff are not, the director level are not there. Since 2017, there's been some changes. But if the staff are here and they're in other departments or whatever, like some, we do have that situation. But I would like to ask that for the staff that are here, if we can't go back before them to somebody else external, that's fine. But in the departments that we do have current staff, I would like to see review. And the reason I'm asking back to 2017 is because that's when I first came, and my recollection goes back to there. So what council chooses to do with it when the motion comes forward in 2 weeks' time, it'll be up to council. But I want to bring this forward, and I do want to ask that council consider providing the CAO the ability to have staff resource and allocation look into this so that we can make sure that any directive that we're taking is solid and that it is based on decision that came from this public chamber. Thank you.
So that'll come forward in the next council package.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, all right, thank you, Councillor Appleby, for that. So next we have the, this is, Councillor Manning had, okay. Let's see where I wrote my notes.
My turn. I had to put out a thank you because I've received some emails from the last storm, no, and one email, but several phone calls concerning the last storm and our public works staff and the guys and ladies out cleaning up the streets. And the calls were thank you calls. And praising our workers and to how they're conducting themselves. Had one woman say, you know, showed politeness and stuff like that, and then their streets were doing good, and an email that I responded to say that then she wanted to pass it on to all the staff. A great big thank you for the job they had done in her area and consideration given to a couple of things there, right? So I just wanted to thank the Public Works staff and certainly the director there on behalf of the residents that did reach out to me. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Appleby?
Thank you. Same thing, I wanted to extend this thank you to our snow clearing staff. It was remarkable to me this week. I work from home, and I don't get to spend as much time out in the community as I used to once upon a time. And I went out after we had the snowstorm this past week, and it was remarkable to me the amount of work that was actually completed, considering the amount of snow that we had. So I think it's very important to make sure, as we're all tucked home in our comfy houses with our wood stoves or whatever else going, there are dedicated workers that are out there making sure that our roads are clear, and I think it's very important to extend that thank you. And I also wanted to put a shout out to the residents. There's a lot of residents who call. They pick up the phone, they call all hours of the day, all kinds of times and spaces, and they ask questions, and they watch these meetings, they read our minutes, and they want to understand what's happening. And I think it's really important that they call us, and they talk to us, and they question us, and they, you often hear me bring it forward and say, how am I going to justify that when I get asked about it? Because I do. But if residents don't speak out, and they don't call us, they don't talk to us, then we don't understand what their concerns are. We can't bring it back here. So I think that's very important. I want to make sure that everyone knows that, we like to hear from them, and that we welcome those calls, and I want to thank them for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Goss?
Thank you. Just wanted to give a shout out to our Northeast under 18 team that traveled to Marystown on the weekend of the 10th. And I might add, I was talking to Councillor Appleby about this, and Marystown Stadium is probably the coldest stadium I've ever been. But we traveled down there, and we went undefeated in the tournament, and the boys took home the championship of the U18. So I just want to say congratulations to the boys, and a lot of Torbay guys there, and again throughout the Northeast system. So just want to say congratulations.
And congratulations to the coach.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Yes, I was watching that, so it's very exciting. And as you mentioned that, I was just thinking that I attended a tournament at the Glacier last weekend, and the under 13, and they won in the tournament as well. So
Sweet.
It was pretty exciting. Anyway, the next morning I woke up with a sore throat, and I'm thinking, my God, am I getting the flu? And then I realized that wasn't the sore throat. That was from screaming and yelling at the cheering them on. So brought back great memories. And as well, I received a couple of calls and talking to people about the roads and the way everything was done. So I echo your thoughts and your comments about all of that as well. And I'd like to say a big thank you for everyone for putting up with me here tonight. When I found out, luckily, Don had mentioned to me if I had seen Mayor Scott's email saying that he wouldn't be here tonight, and I'm saying, no, I didn't. So thank you to everybody for putting up with me. And is there any questions or anything? Okay. Got nobody in the gallery and no questions, so lucky night. The next public council meeting is on Monday, March 6th, 2023, here at in the chambers, and call for a motion for the adjournment.
So moved.
Second? No discussion, and all in favor, aye. Opposed, motion carried.